Sandy Says Read. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the book review and discussion of Storms of the Brain, edited by Michael Knost. Now, this book features a ton of short stories by a bunch of authors. Some of these authors are having their debut publication in this anthology. Let's give you the specs. Open that page. All right, this was copyright 2024 by Michael Knost, and it is published by Hydra Publications. And I'm going to start by reading for you each of the authors' names. There will be some repeats. You know what? Hang on. There is a page that gives us just the authors' names. I'm going to read those for you because I think it's important to recognize these authors, because some of them, this is their first, like I said, this is their first publication. We have Rook Riley, Yvonne Kindle, Christopher Niddrie, E.A. Keville, Daniela Addamo, Nessa Brown, Heather Noble, Rachel Coffman, Sandy Lender, Faith Dincolo, Mary E. Nix, Shad Kelly, Eleni McKnight, Katherine Sanger, J. Rocky Colavito, Nicole E. Castle, Katherine Hudson, and Jaycie Bennett. Right now, I'm going to share with you the more or less just the specs, just the facts, ma'am. I'm going to share with you just the facts from each of these stories and not do like a full-fledged review of each and every one of them. First of all, that would take a very long time. Second, we are going to have Nessa Brown, who is one of the authors who's had her first publication in this anthology, on the channel here Thursday, September 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern to talk about the publishing experience in this anthology. She's going to chat with us about the way the creative process happened, the way there were a couple of different classes that came together to make this creative anthology work, come together. And we're going to talk to her about that. And during that interview, during that discussion, I think we'll go into a few of these stories a little bit more deeply. So this is just going to be an overview of what's in this anthology, kind of whet your appetite for it ahead of that September 26th interview. So let's talk about each one of these stories in order. The first one is Permission Granted by Rook Riley. This story is written in third-person point of view, past tense. The main character is Sergeant Bowers. He is or is it she? Yeah, she. It's been a little while since I read it. Okay, she is a Marine, and she has a robot tech put a device, an implant in her brain so that she can no longer harm a child. She doesn't want to accidentally or any other way harm a child during war. So that's what she requests, and that's what this robot tech does for her. That story takes place from pages 1 through 17. Sorry, guys, I'm checking the status here on StreamYard to make sure we're still recording. All right. All right. The second story is A Soldier's Vow by Yvonne Kindle. This one is written in first-person point of view, past tense. It's a sci-fi story. We have a captain who failed to uncover a plot to assassinate the emperor. So now he is set on a mission to protect the emperor's daughter, which I thought was very noble. And there's more biochip stuff going on in this story too. This one goes from pages 17 to 33. Our next story is Mimic by Christopher Niddrie. This one is written in first-person point of view, present tense. This one I wrote down, it's a Twilight Zone horror story. We have a character named Darren who comes home to find something is mimicking him. Something has taken his place. And this one goes from pages 34 to 51. Our next story is Don't Forget to Remember Me. This is by E.A. Keville. It's written in third-person point of view, past tense. And you guys, I've got to say, that is like the most comfortable for me to read in. That third-person past tense It's just, that is the way I like to read a story. It just is. All right. We have Allison, our main character. Allison gets a sleeping aid device and turns into an AI for her boss. So we've got another one of those stories with like that microchip concept coming into play. This story goes from pages 52 to 78. Next up is The House of Little Treasures by Daniela Addamo. Daniela Addamo. This one is written in third person point of view, past tense. We have Clara's neighbor. Clara's neighbor in this story is, she's like a hoarder, right? She's got all kinds of things in her house. And I wrote down, she could be Rosemary, but she's a sweeter spirit. Rosemary is my neighbor. I have a next door neighbor who's in her 80s, and she has so much stuff in her house. You guys, it is like stepping into a claustrophobic nightmare to step into her house. When I go over there, it's like, okay, here's some eggs for you, because I've got chickens. Here's some eggs. I gotta go. Here's some eggs. I would love to hear stories. Let's sit on the front porch and hear those stories, right? It's anxiety inducing to go into her home, which is a shame. I probably shouldn't say that, but it is the truth. But in this story, Clara's neighbor has, there are important memories, important triggers assigned to each of these trinkets in her home. So, and that one goes from pages 79 to 99. Next story is Lipstick in the River by Nessa Brown. And when Nessa is here, she can chat with us about this story. This one is written in third person point of view, past tense. And I wrote excellent use of drug state. We have our main character is Mallory, and she works in like a nursing home, a healthcare facility. And this goes from pages 100 to 116. Next up is I'm Special by Heather Noble. This is in first person point of view, present tense and past tense. We have the two interchanging in there. We have Vivian is our main character, and I wrote her surprise is fabulous. I'm just going to leave it at that. This goes from pages 117 to 133. Next story is Devil's Cord by Rachel Coffman. This is written in third person past tense. I wrote down that it is horror. It's horror. Our main character is Rowan. She and her father go to a multi-day music festival, and she gets possessed by a demon. She plays a guitar, and she plays the devil's chord on this guitar, and the demon is like, oh, I'm coming to get you. Yeah. Okay, so this goes from pages 134 to 149. The next story up is Bitter Fruit by Sandy Linder. This is written in third person past tense. It is a fantasy story. Go figure. It takes place in my fantasy world of Unveiled, and Amalia Wraith is our main character. She's a fairy. It goes from pages 150 to 180. Next up is Rebooted Red Boots by Faith Dincolo. This is written in first person present tense. It is a sci-fi story. And I wrote down, after a nuclear war destroyed everything but Hawaii. And I don't remember now if it actually said that a nuclear war had destroyed everything, if it was a war that had done this. But basically there was a decimation of like most of the planet, right? So there's just a piece of the planet is left, a piece of the population is left, and they're in Hawaii. And stuff ensues. All right, this goes from pages 181 to 194. Next story is A Ride with Betty 2 Stars by Mary E. Nix. This is written in third person past tense. It is speculative fiction. And we have, it is set immediately, what's the word I'm looking for? Right off the bat, it is set in what feels like present day, right? It feels like it could be a contemporary story because we have this gentleman named Paul who needs to go on a job interview. He needs work and he needs to get to his job interview on time, right? There's a ticking clock. And when his cab shows up, his Uber, when his Uber arrives, Betty is driving it. And she's like, okay, look, I know you need to get to your job interview. I will get you there, but we got to make this little detour first. She's got to go deal with some zombies. So they go into like an alternate reality. They like go into this alternate universe. Poof, they just veer off into another reality to deal with these zombies. And he's like, I'm going to be late. And she's like, no, you're not going to be late. Not going to be late at all. Yeah. This goes from pages 195 to 213. Next story up is Ghost Trap by Yvonne Kindle. This one is written in third person past tense, and it is speculative fiction, but it's also a ghost story, right? It's a ghost story. There's a little horror going on in there. This one focuses on Brian. He is the leader of our ghost busting team. He's going to take his team into this like boarded up insane asylum and get the ghosties. It goes from pages 214 to 246. Next story is Variant by E.A. Keville. This one is written in third person omniscient, past tense. It is a contemporary sci-fi medical procedural. And it's one you've got to pay attention to. You got to be watching what's going on. The variant that's happening is a variant of these prions that are in an individual got into them and into their brain and caused, should I tell too much? I don't want to tell too much, but caused a change in that individual. And the individual basically became a serial killer, and you can be infected if you're too close to that person. Like the prions can jump to the next person. Yeah. Okay. It goes from pages 247 to 272. Next story is Duet Solo by Contessa Niddrie. That's the whole title. And the author is Shad Kelly. This is written in first person past tense. Our main character is Carla Diaz, but she also goes by the name Dross, but she's also possessed by a reincarnated soul. So there are a lot of names in this story. I was keeping track of a lot of names as I was reading through this. It's as evidenced by the title of Duet Solo, there is a musical element to this story, which I greatly enjoyed. It goes from pages 273 to 281. Next up is The Woman on the Doorstep by Eleni McKnight. It is written in first person past tense. And let's see, did I write down what type of story it is? I think it's a vampire story. It is sort of speculative fiction. There is a Twilight Zone horror element to it. Our main character is Brielle. She's home from school, but we talk about the fact that she's been in and out of asylums. So I don't know if she really is home from school or she's an unreliable narrator who just thinks she's home from school. It's very twisty, very twisty. It goes from pages 282 to 297. Next story is Are You My Mother by Katherine Sanger. This one is written in third person past tense. And did I not write down? It's a fantasy changeling story for you. Okay. We have two young girls, Elizabeth and Christina. They're coming up on their 13th birthday. And one of them might be a changeling, or neither of them might be changelings. And we get to progress through the story, figuring that out. This one goes from pages 298 to 307. Our next story, I practiced this, you guys, Coniferocious. The title is Coniferocious by J. Rocky Colavito. A conifer is where that word comes from. Conifer, like a bush, like a tree that is evergreen. Okay. Coniferocious. This is written in third person past tense, and it is very Twilight Zone, very sci-fi horror. We have a meteor that landed, that crashed to Earth, and it burns some areas of a forest. And this crew has to go up there and like clear the way for a road to be built to the meteor so that it can be studied. The crew includes people with names like Douglas and Fir and Oak and Cypress. Okay, you getting the theme there? Okay. And I wrote down here, suddenly appearing violence. Because in the beginning, you're reading through this short story, and it's just starting out as, okay, this meteor crashed, and we've got to get up there to take care of, clearing the way so that the road can be built and people can study it. And then all of a sudden, pine cones are flying out of nowhere and drilling into somebody's eye. And just suddenly appearing violence. I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. Yeah. Suddenly appearing violence. It goes from pages 308 to 326. Lots of violence. The next story up is The Headsman by Nessa Brown. This one is written in third person past tense, and we follow a snapshot in the life of a character named James and his brother. James is an executioner. He and his twin brother, they are executioners, and they have been named executioners from birth because their father was an executioner. This is a fantasy story. It's like high fantasy, sword and sorcery type fantasy. I'm going to leave it at that because Nessa's going to be here and we'll talk with her about it on the 26th. This story goes from pages 327 to 353. The next story is Savior Complex by Nicole E. Castle. This one is written in second person, present tense. Yeah, this is the only story in the book that's written in second person. And it was so intriguing to read it. It worked beautifully, and yeah, it was good. And it was also, I wrote here, a little reminiscent of The Telltale Heart, because the Savior Complex comes into play where the main character is saying, you do this and you do that, and you remember when you were bullied in high school and you remember how this happened. So now you do this to help these people who are being bullied. So you think you're a savior and you think you're doing this good thing, but are you? Yeah. And this one goes from pages 354 to 360. All right, the last two, the penultimate story in our anthology is Reseda of the Verdant Wood by Katherine Hudson. This one is written in third person point of view, past tense, and Reseda is a maiden who is a little older. She's not really a crone. You wouldn't consider her a crone, but she's a fantasy character. She's in this village. She is able to weave beautiful baskets. She is very helpful to everyone in the village. She is very helpful to her father. If I remember right, he was an iron worker. Just very helpful to everyone. So when she is offered up as a sacrifice to a dragon-like creature, she's kind of surprised by it. Yeah, as you would be, right? So she's an offering to this creature called Typhon. And there's more twist. It's not just that she's the one that gets offered. There's more. I enjoyed it. Okay, so pages 361 to 369 for that one. Then the final story in our anthology is Return of the Pirate Queen by Jaycie Bennett. This one is written in third person point of view, past tense. And the story focuses on Lyra, our main character. She's a pirate queen. And she has to work with the sirens of the ocean to get vengeance against the pirates who have wronged her. This goes from pages 370 to 385. Okay, you guys, thumbs up for a whole lot of short stories in a very creative short story anthology. Michael Knost included an introduction to this anthology, just sort of explaining, what you are about to read is a result of a series of classes I taught, where each student brought a fresh story idea to the class for group brainstorming. Hence the title of our anthology, Storms of the Brain. Right, you guys, thumbs up for a great anthology. And please come back and join us on September 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern to talk with Nessa Brown about her 2 stories that are in this anthology and the entire creative process and how awesome it was to do.